darkness of the night, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. It's Daniel. Staying with the Niners. 49er girl says, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. It's unfortunate for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They end up losing out on Brandon Ayuk. It is what it is, but you guys aren't here for that. So I'm gonna put something in the a poll real quick. You guys let me know what you guys think. All right. So I'm going to ask, how should the judge rule in the recent venue hearing? So for those that didn't know, Bryan Kohberger was in court today out there in Moscow, Idaho. And there was a hearing referencing the change of venue. Now, I have some issues with it. I do. My issues are with the judge, like, to be honest with you. I think he said something to the point or to the effect like, I need some time. I need some time to think about this. It's the biggest decision in my life or whatever. It's not like this trial was or this hearing was just like sparked out of the blue. We've known about this hearing for a long time. He's known about it's what I'm looking for. He's known about the arguments. The defense and the state have placed in their arguments, right? So I just don't understand why he couldn't make a decision today. It bothers me a little bit. Whether he was going to move it, keep it, or bring in a jury, I thought that decision should have been made today. Now, what I will say, and some of the things that I took from the hearing, and I only caught probably the last maybe 3 hours of it, and I caught a little bit earlier. I didn't catch everything that came out in that in the hearing, but I will say that Ann Taylor sure does know how to put lipstick on a pig. Bunch of smoke and mirrors, man. And their defense is just so, how did Howard Bloom say it? When you're innocent, or you pound the facts, and when you're guilty, you pound the table or whatever with a bunch of smoke and mirrors and this and that. And at the end of the day, what it boiled down to is there was some, Ann Taylor and the defense team believe that there's some biasness. To me, I don't really think it's bias as much as it's obvious who did this more than anything else. But I digress. So anyways, Ann Taylor saying that the people of Moscow, Idaho are biased towards Bryan Kohberger and that they'll burn things down and this, that, and the third, right? And they want to move it to somewhere else, like Boise, Idaho, where they don't have to deal with a couple of things. And a couple of those things are the pressure of being a juror in that county. People that are attending that hearing are going to see see that juror. And because it's like a close-knit community that, according to her, that, there's going to be an added pressure into finding Bryan Kohberger guilty, And I wouldn't say that there's nothing to that. I think that there could be something to that. As far as being recognized in the public. But at the same time, you can bring in a jury. And to me, I thought that's the best idea, because the state made a very good point. Chain of custody is important. Getting this right is important, and having to move things back and forth 300 miles isn't the ideal thing to do. It's easier to move a jury from closer into Moscow. And to me, I think that might be the route that the judge goes by. You won't fall into that contention where, the people in the courtroom are going to recognize those from the nearby county. You know what I mean? So I think, in my opinion, I think that might be where this goes. It goes there. So that way you don't have to worry about, the jury being recognized or whatever. They're from a different place, and you don't have to travel with evidence and things of that nature. Now, in the end, after the defense team was on, presenting their, smoke and mirror show for like what felt like forever, in the end, the state came up with their argument, and their argument was simple. Their own experts said that there was a 5% margin of error. And when you look at the biasness, the people that think he's guilty, and all that other stuff, the city, or the Latah County and Ada County, both are basically the same, and they're within that 5% margin of error. Now, there's going to be 1,800 people, according to what they were saying there, 1,800 people that are going to be brought in, and these are going to be the potential jurors. 100 persons per juror, so you have 12 jurors and 6 alternates. So it's 18 individuals, 100 persons per individual. And since Latah County falls within the same parameters as far as percentage of people who potentially could be biased or think that he's guilty or whatever the case may have been, it's the same. And because you're not pulling, yes, there's 500,000 people in Boise, but 60% of them think he's guilty. That's significantly more than how many people even reside in Moscow. You know what I'm saying? And so there's other counties that have a better chance, for him to get a non-biased, jury. Even their own defense experts say that there are percentages in certain places that are big enough to have a better percentage to have a unbiased jury. But they don't want that. They want to go where it's possible that he's going to be found guilty, because of biasness. I mean, if you're going to, that's the goal. I don't know. I'm finding this I find this all confusing. So you have an opportunity to find a more non-biased jury in one location, but you're choosing to go to another location where they're possibly more biased. And Ann Taylor's argument against why they shouldn't do that is just plain old stupid. She came up saying, Judge, you need to, consider the first question. Should it change before you consider any other question? And if it is, should it change, then it should be changed. Well, not if the second place is just as bad and causes more issues. That's not the case, right? And it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. But at the end of the day, sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought there. To go back, in my opinion, there we go. I know where I'm at now. In my opinion, it seems like they're playing this to have a better chance at the death penalty versus a better chance to be found innocent or being acquitted. And so you have to, weigh in your factors. And not so much weigh them in, but if you see this defense team kind of, in my opinion, leaning towards Boise because they got a better chance of getting people who aren't gonna, a jury that's not gonna want to do the death penalty, right? There's a lot of it's I guess it's more there's liberal there. I guess I don't know. I think that's what I've heard in the news. I'm not from that area, so I couldn't tell you. But maybe perhaps they're hoping they can get no death penalty. And so when you see the way their strategy, right? We're looking at their strategy. It seems like their strategy is so that Bryan Kohberger doesn't get the death penalty, versus him possibly being acquitted if there's evidence to suggest that, because and you had having a non-bias. Well, that tells me they kind of already know they're going to lose. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, that's what it seems like. This entire argument and everything going into it is a big arrow pointing at the fact that they think they're going to lose. Whoa. Thank you, Christina, for becoming the newest YouTube member. We appreciate you. Thank you. So to me, like I said, I think that it probably would be in the best interest if they brought in a jury. And then the other thing, I think at one point I turned it on and they were talking about how in social media they don't talk about Bryan Kohberger loving his dog, or a dog, I guess it wasn't his, that he helped train or something like that. We still haven't even heard all the bad stuff that he did. This has all been the defense's arguments, right? And so, I know a lot of folks that, the pro-burgers, they'll think, oh man, we're winning because, the defense is just hammering it out. And in reality, and they're just throwing mud on the wall and hoping something sticks, in my opinion. And so we're going to have to wait. I don't think there was a disclosed time as far as how long it was going to be before, what do you call it? How long he's going to take for him to come up with a decision. Yeah, we'll see. If they end up changing it all the way to Ada County, I still think he's going to get found guilty. I just think that it sucks for the victims' family members, and having to have them travel all the way across the state and things of that nature for 3 months. That's tough. You know what I mean? I understand he has a right to a fair trial. Well, you can get about the fair trial in, what was it, like in Canyon or one of those other places, Nez Perez. You can get about the same, and those people there, according to your own deal, were less biased, in my opinion. Well, that's what they said, right? The facts were that they were less biased there. Also, I think they said, that the state said that Latah County is like the 11th largest county in Idaho. That's pretty cool, man. That's good stuff. So you know why? Because they can't argue that it's a small county. It's in the top 25%. We have Serious Black coming in with a $5 super chat saying, always great time with the turkeys and the fam. Thank you. Thank you so much for your donation. Thank you for your support and being a member, mod, the whole 9 yards. We appreciate you guys. If you become members, you also can become part of the Discord. There is a members only community post that has the Discord link to get in. So if you become a member, you can come check that out. I'm on there every now and then. If you tag me, it gets me a notification and I'll be able to see it. Oh man. Yeah, I was talking. Becky comes in with the question. Let me see. Where'd it go? All right. Hey, everyone. I think the defense is being ridiculous. What do you think about Ann Taylor talking about Brian's dog? Poor Brian. That's what I said. I was like, oh, poor Brian. Poor Brian. Everybody's against him. It's either, what is it? It's either the university is against him, the colleges were against him. Yeah. The school that he worked with was against him when he was a security guard. Police were against him in Moscow, Idaho, who had no idea who he was. I had one person tell me, yeah, they knew who he was. And I said, how did they know who he was? And they go, because he applied to be a police officer. I was like, yeah, at Pullman, man, not in Moscow. People are funny. Oh. Awesome. 49 girl coming in with a gifted Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you so much. Thank you. Tim Collins says, I agree that the judge could have made the decision today, but with as much verbiage and documents that the defense threw at him, I understand why he'd want to allow time to read up. I agree. I can agree to that. But at the same time, I don't see how this is a hard decision. I think the hard part of this decision is, are you going to keep it in Latah County with a jury from Latah County, or are you going to keep it in Latah County with a jury from outside of Latah County? The whole argument that the defense made for the reasons going to Boise make no sense. Make zero sense. I mean, their own defense team is telling everybody that there's a margin of error, and that both Latah and Boise, or Moscow and Boise, they're basically the same within that margin of error. I don't know. All righty. You guys got any questions? Put a couple of stars there. Brian used to make out with his dog, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Still guilty. Yeah. That's exactly what I said too. I don't remember hearing about this dog, that he, maybe that was the animal hair that they found in his apartment complex, that one strand of dog hair. So it makes you think, right? It makes you wonder if he had a dog in that apartment complex and it only left a couple of strands of hair in one location. Must mean he cleaned the crap out of that place. I don't know, but I had heard. Can't say this is 100% true. All speculation, but I heard from very credible sources that they couldn't find Bryan Kohberger's DNA in his own car. He cleaned it when he got there and parked it in the garage and left it there. So, everybody wondering why or how, the victim's DNA couldn't get in there. Imagine explaining how his own DNA wasn't in there, anywhere in there. It'd be crazy. Now, I'm not saying that's true, but it would be crazy. Let's see. Let's go through a couple questions. Anybody got any couple questions? Just put a couple of stars. That way I can see them. Or you can hit us up with a super chat, and definitely will help you out there. 100%. We have Michelle saying she treats him like a toddler. Very much so. Very much so. I'll just leave this there. Don't disagree. All right. Mark says, I listened to all the hearing, and I think the judge said he'd have to study case law before making his decision. Still needs a solid footing before he tells the defense no. That's true, too. And that is very true. That's a true statement right there. That's the possibility. That could be a possibility. Let's see. I wonder if the survey was only permanent residents, would results differ and less biased compared to young students attending school in Moscow? That's a good question, But at the end of the day, like the prosecution said, it's not just by, even after they pick out these 18,000 or 1,800 jurors, I'm sorry, not 18,000, 1,800 jurors, 100 per jury person. So after they pick out these 1,800 people, they got to go through their stuff, the background stuff, ask them questions, the whole 9 yards. It's not like they're just going to randomly pick 18 people to sit on the jury and as an alternate. It's not going to work. There's more than one person involved. I just can't see him doing it by himself. I mean, I guess. I guess you can say that that's a possibility. Um, I think it's unlikely. One of the main reasons is he'd only been there for a little bit of time. Who's he gonna like befriend like that? That he's so close with that they didn't narc him out, right? And I know people are gonna say, "Oh, what about the informants?" Well, the only informant that I'm aware of is from the IGG. Those were the people from that he was related to. And so, to me, I think it's more than likely he did it himself. You had 4 students stabbed to death, and all was left was DNA left on the button of a knife sheath. It's highly unlikely that one person can do that, leave no DNA, but 2, 3, 4, I don't think so. All right, let's see. We are used to this heat here. It should be. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm on the wrong thing. True crime editor says, I don't think anybody else was involved. Even if he didn't do it alone, he still did it and they got him. Yeah, but I don't see any evidence to say that there was somebody else involved, and I just find it very unlikely that other person wouldn't have said something, you know what I mean, to somebody. The person that committed this crime, there's you have opportunity, you have motive, which I know a lot of people are kind of concerned about. You also have means, which can lead up to the motive, right? The means is the ability to commit the crime. Now, that's not just can this person lift up a knife and stab 4 people, right? It's can this person kill 4 people in the middle of the night within this amount of time frame and hitting certain people strategically. I think Maddie Mogen is an example of that. I think it's been reported that her death and her wounds were more precise versus like Kaylee and the rest. You also have the fact that no DNA was left behind. Somebody would have had to have known about forensics, and you look at the path traveled to Moscow, out of Moscow, avoiding any major cameras in Moscow that would have captured him. That would have captured a driver's a license plate. So all those things kind of point at that this person was familiar with how law enforcement investigate a crime and how forensics works and where you would find things most likely, places, stuff like that. And he was a PhD student that went to DeSales, and forensics is a couple of courses there in order to get your master's degree out of DeSales. So he would have had that. Also, there's the speculation that he had broke into the WSU chem lab. And up first, I want to say that that's not the only thing in that chem lab. We broke it down on a live not too long ago where I think there's supplies, school supplies, papers, everything in there from, pens and papers to chemicals, right? Now, I'm sure they're divided up into different places. It seems like a pretty big building. I don't think you're going to have, luminol sitting right next to staplers. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be separated. And so I say that by saying, if he broke into that chem lab that apparently he's being investigated for, he could have taken other things other than just chemicals. He could have taken hazmat suits or gloves or booties or, spray for like bleach spray. I mean, I couldn't tell you what he could have taken from there. It could have also been a radio, all 911 dispatch goes through Whitcomb in Pullman. So him being a TA in criminology, if they had, I think they have security guards there, right? Or police school police officers. they carry radios. I would assume that they probably might be locked up in with everything else. Is it possible that's what he may have taken, a radio, so that way he can listen into dispatch? I mean, there's so many things he could have taken, but all those things kind of point at, he knew what he was doing. This type of crime doesn't seem like anything that could have been done by like some drunk guy roid raging, you know, uh, driving around 4 times and, not, entering quietly and killing people silently isn't really uh, something that turns, that's not really evident in a situation where somebody is raging out. And that could be for drugs, alcohol, or even being drunk and love struck, girlfriend leaving you or whatever the case may have been. When you see those type of crimes, there's usually some consistent type of, things you're going to notice that are consistent in each of these cases. And those don't exist. There's an audio from 50 feet away that picks up whimpers, not the sounds of kicking, not the sounds of screaming, not the sounds of people struggling for their life. So when people say, oh man, how did, nobody heard this or heard that, the audio didn't pick it up too. So whoever did this was very skilled. All right. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, that must mean it was Kopaka because he was in the army. He was, this and that. If they looked at just having a scapegoat, and I know there's some like rumors there or whatever that Kopaka had, was taken out by police wrongly too. If that was the case, if police ended up killing him in a manner that would be unjustified, right? If that ended up being the case, wouldn't you think? I mean, they're already shady and corrupt, right? So, wouldn't you think that they would just blame everything on him? It's not like he can argue back, I think Howard Bloom said that that officers had talked to him a couple weeks earlier, and he was having a conversation with Sewer, and so who would have questioned it at that point, right? And there's no trial, there's no nothing. You have your scapegoat. So the mere fact that they didn't do it means to me that they don't have any scapegoats. They arrested this guy because he committed this crime. Now I know, not everybody that gets arrested ends up being guilty or committed the crime, but in this case, this one's easy to solve. I know some people end up, having to count their fingers to, when they're adding 2 + 2. I don't need to do that. And a lot of people don't need to do that. I don't need to look at all the evidence to see that with the evidence that's there, this guy did it. All the other evidence is just going to prove it even more. Because at the end of the day, you can't explain reasonably all the evidence that we know. You just can't do it. His DNA, car seen outside, phone off during the time, person being seen in the house that doesn't exclude him. The likelihood of all these things happening, it's impossible. I think there's a higher chance that the DNA belonged to somebody else than all those things happening at that night and at that time, that while his phone was not working for whatever reason, some other guy that looks like him, drives a vehicle just like his, including the front license plate, is going out and he's about to commit this, homicide, these 4 homicides. And he just so happens to also have your DNA, in his person or whatever. I don't know. Let's see. It's rumored that others in Utah County Jail say that Kohberger is an extreme weirdo that stays to himself. It's going to be rough for him in prison when he's convicted. So he's going to be on death row, most likely, especially if they keep this like in Utah County or one of those counties that are nearby. He's probably going to get, if he's convicted, he's probably going to get the death penalty. So he's going to be on death row there. I'm not familiar with Idaho jail systems and stuff, but my assumption is a maximum security prison is where he would probably be at. Probably the same place where Chad Daybell is supposed to be at. Those type of persons really don't have much communication with anybody else. So yeah, I can see how he's gonna be alone. He's gonna be separated and alone, deservedly so. And so for a long time too, because I think the average is 27 years from the time that somebody's on death row to the time that they're out in Idaho. So he's gonna be there for a minute. I put a couple of stars, guys, if you want me to answer y'all's questions. I can help you out. Let's see. Okay. After 4 says, I think AT included the fear of a mob attack to keep them from bussing in a jury. I mean, come on. You know, they also had an argument earlier, right? That somebody else in Bryan Kohberger's family could have been the ones that killed these individuals. Remember when they said that there was a hearing and Ann Taylor was like, we want to know how many other Kohberger relatives or family members did they find that were in and around Moscow during the time of the murders, and if they were investigated, or did they, they being the police, just investigate Bryan Kohberger? My jaw dropped when I heard her say that. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You're trying to say that while Bryan Kohberger was out and about by himself, he was somebody else driving a car very similar to his. It looks close. I mean, I guess they're related, so they must look close to each other. Also share the same father, because remember, the DNA matched the father. So, yeah. So he had an evil twin brother somewhere that nobody knows about. That was literally what she was saying. She said that law enforcement didn't even investigate the other Kohberger family members and to see if they were in Moscow or had access to be in Moscow. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And then like the time also when she said that there's no footage of Bryan Kohberger leaving Moscow through Police River Drive and I-95. And I'm like, dude, there's like a whole other route that you can go. In fact, I knew about that route well before any of this, camera stuff was coming out or any of those things. And I suspected at that time, and correctly, that he went down that route. We know that because there are some cameras on I-95 that don't show the vehicle heading that direction. So the only thing he could have gone is gone in the other direction. Now, had he not turned off and gone down this one weird road that actually sticks him out somewhere between Genesee and Blaine, is on there, or you can actually get from that area all the way to Wawa Park in probably about 25 minutes. And so it's not that far. And so you can get there without being caught on any cameras. And so knowing that there was alternate routes that gets you around there, and she's saying that screams exculpatory evidence, I know that there's multiple routes. Prosecution knows there's multiple routes. If she tried to pull that crap in trial, all the prosecution's going to do is like, oh, well, Ann Taylor seems to be confused and not know that there are these other paths that you can go. And she's going to look like a freaking idiot. Right now, that's not happening because this isn't the time or place for that. It happens in trial. But yeah, that's not going to fly there. And then when they said that the Star Coffee Cup place or coffee place, the camera there, and people don't realize or look on a map where this place is. And the prosecution said there was a bank on one side of the coffee place, and this is all in the same block. There's no streets in between. So on one side of the coffee place, it was a bank. On the other side was a gas station, which had cameras that covered the same roadway that he was traveling allegedly down. And so they're saying that the camera in the middle, they can't find. So that's suspicious. Even though there's a camera right next door on both sides that are capturing the same block. And that is exculpatory. I mean, was he abducted between those two businesses and somebody else put in his place? Come on, man. Again, I don't understand how people don't figure this out. Like, honestly, if you truly think that this guy is innocent, you're probably just trying to be controversial, play devil's advocate, or let me put it this way. I'm just glad you don't serve are in important positions in life, because I don't know. And I understand waiting till trial, and I understand wanting to see all the evidence or whatever before you make your decision. But to honestly stand there and sit there and say, no, he's 100% innocent. He didn't do this. Somebody else did. Those type of statements. It's pretty crazy. All right, let's go. Continue this. How do you know that he didn't do it? Sure, that I'm talking to someone else there. All right. You might not want to underestimate Kohberger's brief career as a fish cutter. Yeah. And he got fired from that place too, right? Bryan Kohberger looked guilty sitting there. You know, this guy, he's been treated like a freaking prince. You know, no one else in that I'm aware of in pre-trial hearings goes in there in suits and ties and this and that, a third. They give him his diet. They don't, you know, they give him a camera that's far away so they can't zoom in on him, and the quality is real bad. So all you see is his loser head shape. You know, like, man, this dude is alleged to have committed a pretty serious crime. Why don't we start treating him like he did? Now, a lot of people seem to get confused with being innocent and being presumed to be innocent. The presumption of innocence. Presumption of innocence is different than being innocent. Being innocent is meaning that you did not commit the crime. The presumption of innocence is that they don't execute him before he's tried and found guilty by a jury of his peers, that he not get the full punishment of the law opposed on him before he had his day in trial. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be in jail either. There's enough evidence to keep him there. BK Mind includes a secret psycho ninja super ego compensator, two identities involved as perps, the blossoming monster, and the disciplined accessory of limited talent seduced by the monster. Are you a writer? That's pretty interesting. I'm just curious. Do you write? The police were always looking for a single suspect from day one. Remember, there were footprints inside the house. In the rooms of violence, only left one set of footprints not belonging to the victims. 100%. That's very true. You know, I have pictures of the crime scene after, I don't know how long this was. It's probably a few days, maybe, no, probably a week or so after the murders. And you can see into Maddie's room, the walls were missing. Excuse me. Walls were missing. And, you know, I think floors were missing. I know a lot of people argue and complain that, hey, the house was taken down. It's not like the jury was going to go in there. There were not. There was no way they could. I don't even think the stairs were still in there. They removed a lot of inside of that house. Just food for thought on that. All righty. Let's see. I think Judge wants to keep it in lanes. I think so too. John Doe says there is equipment in the chem lab that is very useful to druggies. That's true too. I've been telling people he looks a lot more healthier in jail. He was very thin before. And it's not like he was running a lot anymore. His own defense team stated that his runs had decreased and his drives had increased. I don't see his staying silent as a sign of guilt. His silence when he supposedly had an alibi that could have been verified through traffic surveillance is suspect, though. The fact that he hasn't said where exactly he was at 4 o'clock is extremely suspect. The fact that his defense basically said that they want to see what the prosecution has, and during their cross-examination, they'll tell you what their alibi is. It tells you they don't know what his alibi is. They don't know. His defense team don't know where he was. And if they do, and they're refusing to, then Ann Taylor needs to be disbarred, because she has stated in open court that they're only aware of limited information. And this happened a couple months ago now. This was in reference to some of the discovery that they were wanting, and in hearing, prosecution said that we can't give them what we don't have, and when asked about the alibi, she kind of took the same stance. We can't give you what we don't have. And this is all we've been told, was that he was driving around late that night and going in no particular direction, and this, that, and the third. And come on now. I mean, if you're freaking innocent, you're going to say, dude, I was over here, and go find something that proves I was over here. All right. All right, let's see. He would have been able to be the world's unluckiest stooge if he didn't do it. Here's the other thing, right? So his DNA was on a sheath underneath the body of a victim. But if he's innocent, then this glove stuff that he was wearing and all this other crap, that stuff wouldn't have just started, right? And so he would have had that issue. And apparently, because he was wearing gloves and doing all these things, it was hard for police to get his DNA. So we're supposed to believe that police were trying to get DNA from him in a place that he was at for a couple of weeks already, and they couldn't, that his DNA somehow magically ended up on a button, inside of a button of a knife sheath, while he's out in a secluded area by himself, not even in the same vicinity. Yeah. Tell me how that makes sense. Come on, keep showing me how those dots connect, because they don't. Death row is way different than just prison. He's going to be all by himself. Yep. Sure is. He sure is. Is there a hearing coming up in November, I think, challenging DP eligibility? Possibly. Again, their arguments are more for, trying to save his life, not really trying to say that he's innocent. Any more information on the DoorDash driver? Was there even a DoorDash? Well, there was a DoorDash. It's in the PCA. And in the PCA, the DoorDasher is the person who reported that the DoorDash was delivered. Meaning, at the time when they reported this information, the download of Xana's phone wasn't complete, because it took the DoorDasher to report this information. So I'm assuming that this was probably the next day that the DoorDasher reported this information, because they would have downloaded Xana's phone along with everybody else's. Now, I'm not a phone tech. I don't know how long it takes to download and go through it. But whenever the DoorDash reported this information, it had to have been prior to them discovering it on their phone, because then obviously they would have known. Unless their phones were wiped. Dun, dun, dun. No, I don't think that was the case. Let's see. What are the chances they'll bring in a jury? I'm actually hoping that's what they do. That way Bryan Kohberger can't appeal this or whatever later on in the future after he's found guilty. Bringing in a jury from a place that statistically, according to the own defense's experts, is less biased than anywhere else, probably covers and crosses all T's and dots all I's, in my opinion. Okay. What's the story of BK's dog? I missed it. Apparently he loved the dog and he trained it. I don't know where the dog came from. I don't know if it's his dog or if it's somebody else's dog that he helped train, that he loved on or something. Yeah. Can you identify the front license plate? If not, how is that evidence? Everyone with a screwdriver and a sturdy thumbnail can remove a plate. It does not take superpowers, but it's more than just that the plate is missing, right? It's also that the plate that's missing is also on a wide Elantra that matches Bryan Kohberger's vehicle. It's also in an area while Bryan Kohberger's phone and seen on camera while Bryan Kohberger's phone is not in service, and there is no evidence of his whereabouts anywhere else. And inside that vehicle carries a man that at least looks very similar to Bryan Kohberger as far as height, weight, and build, because the description of him can't exclude him. And that person also has Bryan Kohberger's DNA on their person in their car. What are the chances for all of those things? Now, it's when you look at the piece, obviously, oh man, no license plate. Yeah, I can explain that with the screwdriver stuff, but you can't explain it with everything else. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like, oh yeah, that. I mean, granted, yeah, everybody can take off a license plate, but adding everything else, Bryan Kohberger's DNA in the car, driver being male, 6 foot-ish, athletically built, or whatever the case may have been. I think there's more to it, my man. You think people of Latah all carry pitchforks and dressed in hoods, listening to Ann Taylor's scare tactics? I don't know, man. Maybe she saw Shrek or something before she wrote this up. The other Kohbergers, yeah. It wasn't Brian. It was the one-armed man. That's awesome. Do you think when BK's dad had the car tires changed before they got home, is it a sign that they knew what was going on? I don't know if he had the tires changed. I know he had service done on his vehicle. I think it was an oil change, but I'm not entirely certain that they had changed out the tires. Now, if they did, let's see. I used to work at a tire place when I was like a kid. It was at Walmart. I used to do oil changes and stuff. I mean, I'm talking like 16 is like my first job. Now, my city that I was a part of is a much larger city compared to, Pullman or the Poconos or any of those areas that we're discussing. And I think the tire people came once every like 3 weeks or so, once a month almost. They'd come by and pick up the tires and take them out. Now, I don't know what their schedule is. I mean, 100% anecdotal on my part. But I'm assuming that if you have a smaller community, probably less likely that you're going to be grabbing tires at an exponential rate, needing a bus to come in and pick them up and take them to the wherever it is that they destroy their tires. It's probably going to take a little bit longer for them to build up, enough for them to take, so that way you're not paying multiple amounts to come pick up the tires and take them back. It's not good business. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, maybe they have it coming on a weekly basis. No, you're just spending your money in a bad way. I own a few businesses. You would go under if you did something like that. So you're going to wait until it, builds up. And let's just say it does build up, right? And they would have taken it. Hopefully they would have gotten to it before they burned them. That's all I can say. Or whatever it is that they do to destroy them. And then, I mean, the other thing is too, sometimes these tire places, they try to turn around and flip the tires, right? So you get some older tires and maybe somebody will purchase them at a much lower rate if they have life on them. I know he made a couple of trips back and forth long distance, but if the only reason that he wanted to get rid of the tires wasn't necessarily out of necessity and more because, he wanted to get rid of the tires that were on his vehicle during the commission of the crime, especially after seeing that tire marks were collected or tire compound from tire marks were collected, which would have led back to him. Maybe perhaps they have hopefully they'll have a receipt to lead back to whoever it is that purchased those tires. And maybe perhaps you can still grab them and see if the compound matches to the same tire. So, I mean, it's not hard to find. I know people, I don't know why people think that it's like Mission Impossible for every little thing. You know what I mean? There's easy solutions for it, usually. John Doe, so the suspect removed someone else's front license plate and has the same. Yeah. Do you think Bryan will cave and ask for a plea deal? I think he thinks he'll actually walk and will enjoy the trial. I don't think he's stupid. All right. So I don't think he's thinking he's going to walk. Based on their defense and the fact that they're trying, this whole death penalty stuff. And in my opinion, trying to get this trial set in Boise is to avoid the death penalty. You're already trying this as if you're going to lose. You get what I'm saying? So I think he already knows that. Yeah, I coined the term. I know some other folks use it now, but I coined the term pro-burger. I got tired of saying pro Kohberger, and I was like, you know what, pro-burger. I said this like a long time ago. If anybody can find that video when I said that, please send it to me. I'd appreciate that. If you find it, I'll send you some merch from the Drunk Turkey Show. Why didn't the defense survey those other closer counties? Because they want Boise. They wanted Boise because they think, in my opinion, they can get a better chance of not getting the death penalty. So you're trying this as if you're already losing. It's crazy that they can see it, and there's some random people out there who can't. It's funny. I wonder if this day and age, if the jury could appear remotely. That's a question, not a suggestion. No, I understand. I don't think that would be the smartest idea, mainly because there could be a lot of distractions if they're doing this remotely. Can you make sure that, like me, I got multiple screens here. So, I mean, I can, if I were to come out on a Zoom, I could completely look at the camera and right behind it have something going on. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't think that's the smartest idea. Plus, you want these people to get together and talk, right? And have these conversations with each other. They're going to have to delegate. I think Kohberger is so insane and completely removed from reality that he believes he. That's true. You got to remember, somebody that committed a quadruple homicide probably isn't the most sane person in the world. They got some stuff wrong with them. Probably lack remorse, like things like feelings. Probably see himself and other people's like a organic sack of meat. Kind of like he says he's had those feelings. Again, I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, Daniel, I know like 5 people that don't have feelings and they haven't killed a soul." Okay, that's fine. I mean, I have a saying for that. Everybody that's in the Border Patrol speaks Spanish, but not everybody that speaks Spanish is in the Border Patrol. Same thing applies here. Usually most serial killers, almost all of them, probably lack some certain feelings of remorse and things of that nature. But not everybody that lacks those feelings is a serial killer. But it does checkmark something, in my opinion. It's simple. They got the right guy, 100%. I'll say it. He did it. Yep. Me too. This guy did it. Drink. Yep. Loser head shake. Yeah. Let's see. I'm presuming him innocent. That does not mean I am a pro-burger. No. I didn't say that. I don't think you're a pro-burger. I've heard your takes on things. Let's see. But when it comes to Bryan Kohberger's defense, right, it's not so much that can one piece be explained. Yeah, one piece can. His phone was out of service. Could it have been that it went, he lost service or the battery died or some of those things? Yeah. Those are possible. But if that was the only thing that happened that night, they didn't have his DNA. There wasn't a car matching his vehicle out there. then I can say, all right, there's probably not enough evidence at that point to really get him. And if all they had was the DNA on the knife sheath, they didn't have the car, and, Bryan Kohberger left his phone at home. I think at that point too, that just because his DNA is there, that doesn't mean anything. And if all they had was a car without a front license plate, yeah, anybody could take that off with a screwdriver. But it's when you put them all together. What are the chances that all these things happen and point at Bryan Kohberger, where you see, all right, this guy did it. He's guilty AF, and he's going to get the DP. AT should spend her time and energy prepping for the mitigation phase. That's what they're doing, in my opinion, because that's their only hope when it'll come all down to. I agree with you. And in my opinion, I think that's what they're doing. They're preparing for the loss. That was in response to someone saying him, not saying he wasn't guilty. Oh, okay. Hey, what's going on, True Crime Web? Well, my opinion is he is responsible. I do know no other person could ever face trial without Kohberger being used by some other accused attorneys as the one responsible. I do know no other person could ever face trial without Kohberger being used. That's true. I get what you're saying. So nobody else could ever become a suspect in this case, because Bryan Kohberger would become, everybody would say, no, it was that guy. He's the one responsible. And there'd be a lot of evidence to kind of point that. Thank you for tuning in, Steve. Appreciate you, man. I didn't see your email. I know you said you wanted to email me. If you haven't done so, send it to me. I want to hear what that question was. Daniel, that dun 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 will be clipped and exploited tomorrow. Probably. It's okay. Brings more people. He loved and trained a dog. That is it. If he loved this dog and trained it so well, at least you would think he'd add the name. His dog, Jeff B, not Jeff the Buddy. I was gonna say Buddy, like that was the first name that came to mind, but there was a dog in that area with the name Buddy that something tragic happened to, so I switched it off from there. But yeah, don't you think they would personalize it and say, this dog, it was a golden doodle, a poodle, a miniature Frenchie or something? What was it? Just a dog that come on now. It doesn't sound like he loved him that much. Drug addiction is stimulating the endorphin system and promotes entrenchment of superego. This occurs almost 100% of intelligence. Endocrine system is millions of years old, not mind. DoorDash driver did the smart thing and reported the delivery upon learning about the murders. This is how you stay off the suspects list. Cooperation, not I was out driving. 100%. This is probably the statement of the night, Mark. Makes the most sense. All right. I feel like Ann Taylor is just grasping at whatever she can. If you unalive 4 people, no one gives an S about you loving, caring for a dog or how good your grades are. That's true. Ted Bundy, he had some, he went to law school, right? So he had some good grades. He was a charming person as well. He even charmed the judge. And, he threw it all away for, the guy was crazy. Not saying that Bryan Kohberger is in the same, is Ted Bundy or did some of the similar things that Ted Bundy did or had the same motive. To me personally, I think those surveys may have got to him. I think that when you talk to people who probably feel the same, he was lacking feelings. He felt like an organic sack of meat. And then he's talking with violent offenders, possibly maybe some who have also taken the lives of others without remorse. And maybe they're telling him, I feel a certain way. And maybe those things are clicking with Kohberger, where he's like, I have those feelings too. And maybe, some of those questions that he was asking about how you felt and what did you do afterwards and what made you choose this person or whatever was something that he had to feel himself, because he was feeling similar things about not having feelings, And maybe that's what kind of turned him, is like, man, I'm just like these people. Especially if he's not having, those emotions. I can see how maybe perhaps he could relate to somebody who's convicted of a violent crime, perhaps murder. And if that person also lacks the remorse and the feelings, I can see how maybe he can trick himself into thinking, or maybe he really is, obviously he is, thinking that there's a lot in common, and that maybe in order for him to feel something, he also has to do this. I don't know. That's just my theory and thoughts on it. She said he trained his dog announcer. Trained his fog announcer, Taylor? And those old tires need changing it. I keep saying it was the multiverse BK who done it. There you go. Plot twist: Bryan has an identical twin brother given up at adoption at birth and lives in Moscow. He found out about Bryan, right? So he's like, I'm going to study Bryan. I'm going to watch him leave. All right, he's gone. So I have a window before he gets back. And I somehow know that his phone is going to be off at this time. So I have this window while he's out in the woods, studying the stars, to go commit this crime and leave this sheath there, because we have the same DNA, so they can trace it back to him. This guy even went out and bought an Elantra without a front license plate. It took it off. It's crazy. But I know you were being sarcastic, but it's just crazy that some people might actually believe that. It's also easy to dismiss or explain any piece of evidence. Much harder with the totality of the evidence. Right. And then the funny thing is people will say, they got DNA, but you can get DNA from anywhere. It just doesn't add up. Or, his phone lost service, but, he could have been out in the mountains or in the park. It just don't add up. And I keep thinking to myself, well, why don't you add all the other pieces together, bro? Maybe it will. You know what I'm saying? You can't take a problem like 10 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5 that equals 30 and just take the 10 and the 5 and say, hey, this don't add up to 30. It's crazy. I think the look on his face is pending doom and sobriety. That's possible. I didn't watch it yet, but I heard at one point JJ seemed frustrated with Ann Taylor. Probably. I mean, she just keeps putting on these large spectacles about nothing. And then at the end of the day, prosecution just has to come in there with a couple one-liners and completely destroy the entire case for the day. But when that's all you have, if you had actual evidence and facts that said something different, that it wasn't him, you'd probably be harping on that than instead of this smoking pony show. Why would a murderer leave their license plate on? Why would a murderer take their own car? Why would a murderer leave the knife sheath behind? Why would a murderer take his phone? At the end of the day, a lot of stupid mistakes were made. I just find it astonishing that people are surprised that somebody got caught after making so many mistakes. Let's get those likes up. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can just scroll down and see any stars over the hour mark. Thank you. I appreciate that, Luis. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I got one more here. They say Kohberger is denying mental health programs while he's currently in jail. I wonder why that is. Don't want to confess anything or have a therapist pick his insanity. True. I mean, that's possible. I think also he's trying to put an appearance up that he's not crazy, that he doesn't need those things. I don't know. And Taylor is going for it. Money and fame. I won't argue with that. I won't say that's true, but I won't argue that. I don't know her like that. She might be just trying to do her job to the best of the ability. In my opinion, I'll be honest with you guys, though. I think she screwed Kohberger. Just flat out straight. You know, putting a lot of this, like not doing a speedy trial, really screwed him up. And it's for a good reason. It's for a good reason. I'm glad that this happened. Because had they gone to trial early, there was the question of the 3 unknown DNAs. Now, they're probably one was outside in a glove found after weeks, and there was snow underneath of it. Obviously, that was left accidentally by somebody well after the murders. And the other 2 were just somewhere in the area. No, we're not stating, where they were exactly. We did go into quite a bit of a description about the one inside a glove, I think it was. And so, to me, I forgot where I was going with that, to be honest with you. Oh, yeah, now I remember. So to me, throwing that on trial, that would have been a bigger blow then. This whole stuff with the phone cast things. Andrew Garrett said that, the prosecution may have made some mistakes there. They need to go fix them. They would have had those mistakes in a speedy trial. They wouldn't have had the DNAs found out, which in a couple of hearings ago, the prosecution stated they had done extra DNA workup on DNAs that the defense was inquiring about. The only defense DNA that they were inquiring about were the 3 unknown DNAs. So they figured out who they were. At the time, if they were unknown, you could have said that could have been anybody's, blah, 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 blah. Now that they know who it is, we can go and clear them, especially if they have some sort of alibi. You know what I'm saying? And it's been a long day. It's been a long day. Not only did I do this, but for those that like to listen to the Steelers stuff, I worked all day, got home, had just enough time to eat. And then I had to jump on a Steelers podcast, and then I'm here, which is why I'm wearing my Steelers jersey, my salute to service Steelers jersey. But yeah, it's been a long day. How much do you think Kohberger is involved in his defense tactics behind some of the crazy things that AT comes up with? Now, this is going to be the last question, but I think quite a bit. And the reason being is because a lot of these arguments she could have came up with before. And she hasn't. Just now, all of a sudden, she was waiting for this one. I don't think so. All righty, guys. Well, that's going to be it for me. I'll be back this weekend. I'm positive it's probably be closer to Sunday that I'll be back on. We're going to be talking about some more UFO stuff, I think. Unless anything else comes out about the Bryan Kohberger case. If the judge comes back with a decision one way or another, we're definitely going to go live after that. But stick tuned. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, do the whole thing. We appreciate everybody. You guys have a great night. We'll be back this weekend. Peace.